Hello and welcome to another episode of the Full Force Weekly, brought to you by GeneralsJoes with me, Christopher McLeod AKA Diagnostik80. For today's episode, I'm joined by the awesome Patrick Notpicard Stewart and Carson 3D Joe's Mataxis. In this regular video series, we round up all the week's news in the world of G.I. Joe. It's the Full Force Weekly. Woohoo! Right, brilliant. Let's do this. I don't have anything interesting or fun to say in this intro. Let's just get stuck in, shall we, buddy?
Sounds good.
Right, that was an explosion. Fart explosion. Okay, and in Micronauts news, it has been less than a year since the live-action Micronauts movie was pulled from the Paramount Pictures release schedule, but it's not all doom and gloom, Micronauts fans, because according to the producer/composer, Paul Edward Francis, it's likely that we will be seeing the long-awaited and long-since completed animated series later this year. In an interview with Pop Horror, the composer of the series score explained that the show would be coming later in the year and even mentioned it by name. Now, this would have been on last week's weekly. However, we had a bit of a fan fest kind of reaction episode to do, so that kind of slipped under the under the radar. So I've attached it to this one. Pat, what are your thoughts about the this Micronauts animated series? Are you excited about it? Do you care?
Well, slipping the news of it a week later really is a small sliver of how much later it seems like this finished series seems to have been. It's been a long time waiting for this. I'm curious to see how this turns out. Micronauts is a little bit of a weird one because so much of that property was like the original story that fans love was tied up with Marvel Comics, and obviously they're not going to be doing anything with that. And I'm curious to see how some of this stuff plays in to the IDW Micronauts. I don't know. I mean, I'll probably watch at least the first episode to see if it catches me and pulls me in. It definitely, I don't have any expectation that this is going to remind me of the Micronauts of my childhood.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But, my mind has been open to Micronauts cartoons that didn't remind me of my childhood before. I've never really gotten to see it, but there was a show in Japan based on Microman back in like the early 2000s. Based on the Magna Microman and the Microman LED Powers stuff.
Cool. I haven't seen that either, and it's actually pronounced Microman.
That's right.
No, that's really cool. And well, one thing I will say is obviously we are kind of given a little heads up on what to expect visually, at least, with some of that concept art, and it kind of it's skewing a little younger, I think, younger audience. I'm like you. I'm going to give it a little go in the first kind of episode just to see kind of how it is. I'm actually surprised we're seeing it at all. Honestly, it's not beyond the realms of the fantastical that these things don't even see the light of day. Like there's loads of stuff that gets even completely finished product and just gets canned, and we never see it until 30 years down the line when nerds like us are trying to find information about it. So I'm actually surprised we're seeing it, in any form and fashion, and that excites me just a slight little bit anyway.
Yeah, it almost seems a little bit silly, though, to shelve things for so long in a world of streaming. I'm sure that a lot of deals with Hasbro and other companies for where some of that content is going to be is probably been the biggest issue, and maybe they want to drop it, at a time where all of the focus of kids may not be on something else that is also dropping at the same time. Release dates still matter even in the world of streaming.
Absolutely.
It has been a very long time, and I think that there is a little bit of a danger whenever they have left something sit for a very long time that it could look dated even to kids. I don't think that that'll happen. All the images that we've seen of it still looks kind of like it has its own flavor to it, which I think will help make it feel very new still whenever it comes out. But I'm really curious to see, and I would love to know, too, after I see it, if there's been any changes that were made at all to update it prior to just releasing it.
I imagine that the concept art may, we might find that the concept art doesn't really bear any relation at all to what what we actually finally see. But again, really excited to see what they come up with, and I'll give it a go when it kind of happens. And if we get any more information, we'll let you know. Obviously, this was in an interview with the composer of the music for the show, and he, I'm guessing, has like some information that he was allowed to share and was allowed to go out. So it looks like at some point we'll be seeing that later this year. So fingers crossed.
I was just going to ask, toys? I mean, this is a Hasbro thing.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Do you think that this could also, actually, while we're on the subject, actually, you could see them maybe re-releasing some sort of like collector's thing, like they did that Micronauts set quite a few whiles back, under Daryl DePriest's supervision of the brand. We could possibly see like a little retro inspired thing, but alongside the kids, more appropriately attached media tie-ins, couldn't we?
I suppose we could. I don't think that we'll see anything more retro from Micronauts. I think that the big hurdle is that, from what I understood, whenever that set came out, that was it. Those were released as a set because, as far as what Takara could find at the time, that was all they had.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me because it hasn't been... I don't think it's been that ridiculously long since Takara did their own reissues of some of that stuff. But apparently, the tooling is not really all that usable, maybe. But I don't know. I think that that's all that they could come up with for that San Diego set. I don't think that there were other things available. As a matter of fact, I don't think those are the heads that were originally on those figures.
No.
They just kind of made what they could. And, I mean, I guess they made new missiles for that set, so they could have made some new parts. But I don't know. I'm not crossing my fingers for any of that. Certainly if I get some new O-ring stuff, I want it to be G.I. Joe.
Yes.
I don't know. I would just expect that whenever they started developing this cartoon to begin with, they at least did preliminary design work on some toys to cross over with it. So I don't know what they may have had waiting in the wings that maybe that they could order or have ready. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I guess weird thing.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. Again, I'd be very surprised if this didn't have a toy feature in some way. Yeah.
I was just picturing something along the lines, actually, of the Stretch Armstrong toy line, because I think that's when our news of this first came out. It was roughly around the timing that we could have seen Stretch Armstrong and Micronauts at the same time on the shelves, I thought.
Yeah, but still...
So we'll see.
I do expect toys like 100%. I mean, why wouldn't that be the case? That would be the oddest decision in Hasbro history, I think, and they've had a few. But in any case, moving on, and in Funko Pop news. New pre-order listings for the latest G.I. Joe Funko Pop wave showed an updated deco scheme on version 2 Storm Shadow and returned his eyebrows, thankfully. Yes, the digital camo is back and looks great on the new Pop, and as if that weren't enough, GameStop dropped a pre-order for their own exclusive Red Ninja Pop as well. Entertainment Earth had the latest wave coming in at $10.99 per figure with a shipping date in July, whereas the GameStop exclusive Red Ninja comes in at $11.99 and will be shipping in June. Are you happy they decided to go the digital camo here, Pat? Because I certainly am.
Certainly. It looked to me, whenever we were looking at these before, that was going to be some sort of special GameStop release or something, and that we could just assume that the digital camo would be coming later. I still wouldn't be against them releasing it without the digital camo. I think that it's a good look for Storm Shadow, obviously, because it looks more like his version 1 figure. A little bit of blend between version 1 and version 2 with the hood and the gear from version 2. But it needs to be in the digital camo. That needs to happen. I also noticed, actually, that Scarlet also got her eyebrows. So they must...
It was funny, actually. I didn't even notice when we first broke the news and I was looking at those figures. Didn't dawn on me at all. I just thought that was the Funko vibe, And then when I saw the figure again with the eyebrows, I'm like, oh, that is a massive difference. So yeah, very, very good that they did that. Like they had to do the digital camo, in my opinion. I do like the all white, and what you're saying is kind of like it's almost like a version 2, but then homaging the original costume in the all white, and that is a fun vibe. And I think I have heard, and I can't confirm this yet, but I have heard like some waves saying that both versions are actually going to be coming out. So maybe that's the case. It doesn't sound right to me. It felt to me like it was pending licensor approval, and licensor approval wouldn't happen until the digital camo was added. So that's what it screams to me. But we'll find out eventually, and we'll let you know as and when we find out. But I'm not doing too much research on this because, come on, guys, we'll find out eventually, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, and if you compare them, the full set of images, you can kind of tell that one without camo was part of a set that was all renders, whereas these look like they're finished figures. So I think that, no, we can't expect that. But you know what? If there's enough demand for it, Funko definitely seems to listen to demand and will put out limited items. And I think that would be a good limited one to put out somewhere.
Absolutely. Actually, what would be really cute is if they did the black on, the black snowy kind of camo on it.
The Ninja Force one?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Obviously, different weapons would be a bit of an issue for us, the real stalwarts who are looking at it going, yeah, but it's not the proper details on there. He's got to have his black and gold shoulder pads, and he's got to have all of this stuff going on. Well, anyway, it might be a cute thing to do with that mold, but it's not like Funko, struggle to put different details out there and struggle. These aren't the most expensive things to make. They're fun, and I must admit, I'm still amazed that they're still going as strong as they are this many years later.
Yeah, I can remember whenever these hit big at toy shows, you eventually kind of saw some dealers showing up with nothing but Funko Pops, and maybe it's rude of me to say because it's such a bad thing now, but it was reminding me a little bit of the Beanie Babies.
Oh, yeah. Everyone used that comparison. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's no longer fair to say that, because Funko Pops have way outlasted Beanie Babies and have made a much more significant impact on collectibles and fandom than Beanie Babies ever did. Sorry, Beanie Babies.
Sorry, BBs.
It's true.
But FPs are here to stay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a massive Funko Pop collector, but I have been picking up the odd G.I. Joe ones here and there, and now it's making me I'm getting a little bit completist with it, which is annoying. I did have the first lot, like Roadblock, version 1 Storm Shadow, version 2 Snake Eyes, I believe. I know they're doing another one with Timber, but I think version 2 Snake Eyes was already done. And obviously all the other, I think there were a few other characters in there too, Cobra Commander, so a Destro. I've got all those. So now I'm kind of trying to complete all these new ones that are coming out, like Dr. Mindbender and Leatherneck and Beachhead, and they're churning them out all of a sudden. And now we've got this wave of what I think are some of the best with this digital camo Storm Shadow. Anyway, enough of my problems. Let's get on with the news. Let's continue with the news. And in letter opener news, Icon Heroes teased an image of what looked like Snake Eye's sword, but in actual fact is an officially licensed letter opener. They will be fully revealing very soon. The product looks really cool for a letter opener and includes an ornate black handle, curved hilt, decorative blade collar or habaki, Arashikage branding, and a gorgeous black blade. No word on price or release date yet, but if the Grimlock sword letter opener is anything to go by, then you'll probably be looking at around $30. Pat, what did you think of this surprising reveal?
Well, the first thing I thought is I saw Icon Heroes. I was familiar with the Grimlock sword and the He-Man one, and I thought, people are going to think that this is a full-size sword.
That's
what I thought.
Can I tell you a funny story? It's
Sure.
not that funny, but it's actually more depressing from my point of view. I saw the story. I saw the post. I immediately ran to the laptop and I wrote out the copy, which takes, like 10, 15 minutes sometimes. Wrote the copy, set up my laptop, plugged in all the audio interface, set record, recorded the copy, all fine, everything's going well. Like went into Photoshop, edited the image for the title card. That's a good, 10, 15 minutes. Bounce that out, go into Final Cut Pro, edit the episode. That's a good, 20, 30 minutes of work. So it's, it's about an hour or so going on now. I get to posting, which is going to be another 15, 20 minutes of work because it's not an easy process to post on Facebook, especially when you have to add all the crap that I have to add on there. And I'm about to post. I'm literally about to post it on Facebook, and I think, I'm just going to check the website. Don't know what made me think of this. I just thought, maybe I can get a price for, like an idea on price as if they've done similar stuff in the past. Go on the website and I see the Grimlock letter opener and I'm like, it's Icon Heroes. They don't make swords. They don't make swords. They make letter openers and little trinkets and fun things. So what do, Pat? I message you. I'm like, guys, is this a letter opener and not a sword? And you immediately responded, yes, it's a letter opener. I'm like, so I had to go back. I had to redo the copy, re-record it, re-edit, redo the visual thing, all that stuff, and finally post it. And I'm just like, I can't believe I did all of that. But that's me in a nutshell.
And toward the beginning of you doing that, you had already posted on the Full Force Facebook page a still image of it.
Thankfully, I didn't put any information about it, though.
No information, right. But I very quickly posted to that letter opener just to make sure that people knew. So if you looked at your own Facebook page, you could have also saved yourself some time.
I didn't see that. Oh, my goodness me. Yeah, so I fortunately, even though it sounds like a lot of work, which it was, and I did it twice, it would have been worse if I'd have posted that episode, because if I'd have posted the episode, the lengths to which I have to go to retrieve all of those uploads, like Podbean, I do things through Podbean as well. So if that had gone out, which wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, but it would, I would have had to record all of those, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, etc., etc. Anyway, enough of my life. I really like this. Even as a letter opener, I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's super detailed if it does come out that way, because you've got that ornate design on the handle, you've got the beautiful geometric cuts in the blade, the little teeth on the blade, which I forget the technical term, forgive me, but I do remember Habaki, which is the blade collar, which is just above the hilt, just above the guard and on the blade, and it's got like a really cool snake design on there, which is really cute as well, and Arashikage branding. But I mean, I think it looks gorgeous. What are your thoughts of the actual product?
I think it looks great. I haven't actually picked up to,
I need that Grimlock one, man.
No, I don't have that one.
I need that.
Yeah, I think that this would be cool to have like a nice collection of small swords. I don't think that it's that feasible for me to start collecting full-size swords. So these letter openers are kind of a nice substitute for that. I can only imagine what a full-size Grimlock sword would look like.
Oh, it would be amazing. It
would be almost like a gigantic heavy club, though.
Yeah, they'd have to do it like they did the He-Man sword a little while back. That kind of spongy foam kind of, style.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind having one, though, that is just impossible for me to pick up. Like, this is a sword, but I cannot lift it. I'm not He-Man or Grimlock, so
I think doing those like actual one, I'd love to have those actual ones. Like you said, that Grimlock one would be heavy as heck. They'd have to hollow it out, wouldn't they?
No, just make it too heavy for me to lift.
Fill it with granite. Make it so heavy, the delivery guy can't even get it to my house. But yeah, I've got to admit, I would love a full-size version of Snake Eyes Sword. I know one has been released in the past, but I'm kind of thinking now that's going to be super expensive. But I want that style, that version 2, 1985, elegant.
I don't have space for an entire sword collection, but I definitely have space for a few swords, and a Snake Eyes 1985 one would definitely be one, because I didn't pick up that original one either. And honestly, looking at this letter opener, I kind of like I don't remember particularly loving exactly all the details on that original sword. Maybe I need to take another look at it. You know, it could have just been that I didn't have the money at the time and it was sour grapes for me.
You sure?
The letter opener, I think it looks like a full-size sword. That's the tricky thing. So that tells you how well detailed this thing is. And I do kind of wonder how it will scale with other things. I'm pretty sure that I've seen, I think it was Pixel Dan did a review of the He-Man one, and he put it in a Masters of the Universe Classics He-Man hand or something to show you the difference in size. And they're not made to scale with any particular figure.
Right.
So I'm not expecting this letter opener to be like a deluxe sword that you could just put alongside your 6-inch Snake Eyes. I don't think that will happen. But I think that you also would be very satisfied to get this for $30.
I'm definitely getting one as soon as they can become available. I'm going to be jumping on this because it looks amazing, and also like I can't wait to see, because some companies are going to be doing swords. They'll probably do movie ones. I imagine the movie swords will get done. But the Morning Light, I know they're kind of katana based as opposed to this one, which is like ornate and slightly different in that. It's almost like scimitar style. It's got that kind of fatter blade at the end, hasn't it? Kind of curved at the end. But yeah. The one that I think we'll get the Morning Light, which I do think they look really cool, like the Morning Light and Storm Shadow sword. We've just had news, obviously, which we'll come to in a little while, about disguised costumes. Spoiler alert! But they've kind of revealed some swords for that line as well, and obviously we've seen the swords for the toys. I wouldn't mind a couple of them, like on a nice little kind of stand. That would be quite cool, I think.
I agree. I think that it's cool that after however many years. And I think that you said that it was from the comics, right? The Morning Light. I think that it was a good idea to actually name some swords and really get into the swords of these characters. And does this sword hasn't gotten a name over the years, has it?
No, I don't. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
It kind of deserves one.
It does. It does. Like Evening Darkness. That works, right? Evening.
Yeah, not the Blade of Justice. That was the one. Retaliation, wasn't it? Wasn't it the Blade of Justice?
So gross. That's the worst name ever for anything. Even if it was a blade that, you know, upheld the law, I still wouldn't be.
The Blade of Justice sounds like the Tick should be carrying it. Rather than...
yes. Agreed. That's another. We need to do a whole podcast on the Tick, because I love that entire.
I love that show too.
I love the original. I love the cartoon. I love the original TV series. I like the new series. Man, we'll need to do a podcast on that. We'll call it a pair of ticks. Tick heads. That would be a great name for it. Come on. Okay. Anyway, Pat is not. He's not amused at that. So let's move on. And I did spoil this a little while ago, but in costume news. Disguise Costumes have revealed their range of Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins costumes for kids and adults, and they look like a lot of fun. The list of items revealed include Snake Eyes Deluxe Costume, Snake Eyes Girls Costume, Snake Eyes Adult Costume, Snake Eyes Mask and Hood, Snake Eyes Gloves, Ninja Shuriken, the Morning Light, Storm Shadow Muscle Costume, Storm Shadow Gloves, and a Storm Shadow Sword. The design of Snake Eyes is on par with the revealed movie classified series / core ninja aesthetic, while Storm Shadow is sporting an identical look to his core ninja figure version rather than the movie classified series version. No prices or release date just yet, but we will keep you informed when the info is revealed. What did you think of these, Pat?
I think maybe these may fall back to what I was talking about last week, where sometimes licensed items and figures are based on concept art rather than on what is actually going to be used later. Yeah. So I wonder if that's what's going on with Storm Shadow. We're getting a little bit of the action figure and something for kids that shouts Storm Shadow a little bit, but is not actually what ended up being used. That's my guess.
Yeah, it's not the kind of bone coloured Storm Shadow costume, is it, that we saw in the classified version, which we're assuming, and I think we're told in the FanFest that is the that's going to be the costume closely resembling what Storm Shadow wears in the movie. It's not that, but I imagine we will see that at some point as a costume. What I just imagine here is that these are also to go in line with kids, with the toys, to kind of get that consistency going, I guess, between those two aspects. And I still imagine we'll see a Storm Shadow movie proper version down the line.
I'm really curious to see some of this stuff. I always enjoy that. Part of my enjoyment whenever it comes time for Halloween, because I don't really buy stuff like this. You know, it's made for kids.
Absolutely.
I leave it on the shelf, and it's hopefully fun for a kid to pick up. But I do notice that by the time that after Halloween, because if there was some stuff on clearance, honestly, I probably would buy it. But I don't see it there. I mean, I always go past Walmart's clearance section. Halloween stuff definitely has a closeout sale each time.
Yeah.
And the G.I. Joe stuff, I should say, from the past, I've never really come across that. I don't know if some G.I. Joe collector maybe gobbles it up in the morning, or I like to imagine that maybe by the time the sale is over, some kid has actually dressed up as Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow each year.
I hope so. I hope it's the latter. But
yeah.
I must admit, mate, the roleplay stuff in general, like not just this disguise stuff, but like kind of the Hasbro roleplay stuff, I'm looking at it and I'm legitimately thinking I would love to have some of that. Like, I legitimately want that mask. I want to see that heads-up display. I want those little camera weapons that stick together and pull out and they go... And the bandolier looks adorably cool. Like, I want that so... I mean, as a kid, I'd have had all of that stuff because I remember when Thundercats were a big thing, when I was very young, and I needed that Sword of Omens. That Sword of the light up one with the little kind of light up Thundercats logo. I was so happy when I got that sword. And all of those aspects as a kid, I just loved the dress up stuff. I loved all that vibe. So I think as an adult, I'm looking at it as like a collector thing. But I'm looking at this like this is some seriously cool, fun stuff they've created here.
Well, you know, that's the interesting thing is that, like I mentioned clearance, and I'm not saying that to say, hey, this stuff isn't good, it's going to go on clearance right away. Just that there's the tendency for all this stuff for, you know, Walmart and Target to have a gigantic aisle full of this stuff, and then, you know, all of it by the end of October is cleared out.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think there's a market for this stuff all year round. I know as a kid, I enjoyed that kind of thing. And it's interesting in the world where cosplay is now more of a thing year round, that there isn't more stuff specifically for kids that is just left in the regular aisle. So maybe some of this stuff will actually make it to that section of the store and stick around. I know that sometimes some of that Halloween stuff, you have to get it as soon as it lands.
Oh, yeah.
Because it can be some of the cooler looking things. I know I picked up some Ghostbusters stuff at one point, and last year some of that stuff was the same thing that was in Walmart.
Absolutely. And I'm just really, I don't know, I think I'm just really excited at some of the stuff that's coming out at the moment. I'm more so impressed with the role play items that we've seen from FanFest than I was with any of the role play stuff we've seen previously in in Retaliation, Rise of Cobra. I mean, that stuff just never really, I never looked at it and thought I need that. I just would always automatically like not really pay attention to it. And I think that the stuff they're doing for this movie, there's something about it that's like drawing me in. And I think it's like there's a cool play feature attached to some of the aspects, but then the heads-up display and the mask, damn. And this stuff, again, this disguised costume stuff looks very fun. The muscle suit looks hilarious. I'm going to get that adult costume. I'm not lying to you. It's going to happen. I'm going to wear it, and I'm going to pretend to be Mr. Henry Golding in the Snake Eyes costume. If you're watching Henry, that's what's going to happen.
It'll come across maybe a little bit more like Michael Cera from Arrested Development.
You're right.
Remember when he had the muscle suit?
I have pictures of me in a Ryu, however you pronounce it, a Ryu costume muscle suit, and it's hilarious. I'll see if I can flash that up if I can find it. That was a hell of a stag do in many moons back. Anyway, I won't tell you. I won't tell you the story of how we were all dressed up as different computer game characters in the club when a fight kicked off, which was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But I won't get into that just yet. That's for another episode. But yeah, you can imagine Sonic was there, Mario was there, Hitman was there, some characters from all sorts. There was Blanca, I think, as well. It was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, moving on.
They didn't all start fighting each other, did they?
No, we were just in and around as the fights were kicking off, and we were trying to break them up mostly, which is the complete opposite of what Ryu and Blanca and all these characters normally do.
Yeah, somebody should have shouted, "Finish him!"
Mate. Really... I was going like perfect, like constantly. Constantly. It was the funniest thing ever. Anyway, I've more or less told the story. There you go. We'll go into more details on another episode. Anyway, Pat, I'm gonna quickly jump on over and speak to Carson of 3D Joe's fame about the Hasbro Q&A we did a little while ago, and then we'll be coming back to do shout-outs. So don't go anywhere, mate. We'll be right back, okay? Joining me now is the curator of the truly epic G.I. Joe website and soon-to-be quintessential all-encompassing G.I. Joe reference resource, 3djoes.com, Carson Mataxis. Thank you for joining me, my good man. How are you doing?
Hey, buddy. I'm doing great, man. It's a great pleasure to be here. You are so productive, man. So prolific on YouTube with the news bursts, and I'm just happy to be a part of it, man. So thanks for having me.
I've paid him to say that. No, that's very appreciated.
Unsolicited brown nosing.
We'll have to.
No, it's true, man. I know how much work video is. I do video for a living, and so when I see what you do and the rapidity in which you crank it out, like news drops, and then you have it that afternoon or that night, I know that's massive labor, so I appreciate it.
I appreciate you appreciating that.
Yeah, some people think this stuff just happens, right? Websites just build themselves, and YouTube videos just make themselves, and there's actually flesh and blood that are toiling at their computers making this stuff happen.
There's a lot of flesh and there's a lot of blood involved. I'll tell you that much for nothing. Well, anyway, we got you on today because we were invited to participate in a very cool Hasbro G.I. Joe team Q&A earlier in the week, and after dropping some very interesting nuggets of info into the fandom, we thought we'd get together and delve a little deeper into some of the more interesting comments from that interview on today's weekly. So, I mean, the first thing that was mentioned, Carson, was Yojo June. That was really exciting. That was something I forgot that happened last year, but it wasn't on my mind coming into this year. And
we had a new line kicking off, right? And so the expectation, I don't think any of us, the fandom, had the expectation that, well, every year we're going to get a Yojo June, So I think it came as a surprise to most of us.
But I mean, one of the things that came out of that initial question, well, it only came out of the question I asked about Target exclusives, and would we be seeing anything like increased numbers on product and so on and so forth? And the response was a really interesting one, because Ben mentioned, obviously, Yojo June coming up. That's where a lot of the announcements of these things are going to be made. But one of those things was an announcement about possible reruns, reissues of certain figures that, have previously been out in the Cobra Island run. I mean, how excited were you to hear that?
I mean, so I've paid the heavy price to have two of each, right? So I'm not. I think this news is more exciting for the fandom that honestly just can't afford to throw $100 at a Viper on eBay.
Agreed.
Most of these I've found at retail because I've put in the work and I've gone to the stores first thing in the morning. I've found most of them at retail. But I'll be honest, the Vipers, I paid $100 a piece for it on eBay, and that hurts. And not everybody has the money to do that. I probably shouldn't responsibly be doing that, But so I think this is really meaningful for those fans of the brand that want to collect this line, that are completist collectors, that can't drop $100 plus on Cobra Troopers or Cobra Vipers. And so this is going to be really meaningful for them, because who wants to have an incomplete collection, especially of like army builders like Vipers and Cobra Troopers?
Absolutely.
So I was hugely relieved to hear that they are aware of the issues. They hear us. They read the chatter online. They gave us some explanations, being COVID and manufacturing problems and distribution problems, but also they would never throw a partner under the bus.
Yeah.
But I think they clearly stated we work in partnership with our partners to, secure their orders. And I think as G.I. Joe fans, we have to be pragmatic and realistic. When is the last time G.I. Joe was on shelves before classified?
Yeah.
50th anniversary at Toys R Us.
And it was a minimal space as well, wasn't it? It wasn't, yeah.
It was a tiny space. I think 2 pegs for the 2 packs, right?
Yeah.
So there was minimal space, and that goes back to, what year was that? 2016?
16, I want to say.
Yeah, something like that. So if you haven't had store space since 2016, you're a 5 years dead brand. And you're coming out with a completely new format that's completely unproven on a 5 years dead brand. You can't expect Target to order 1 million of these and be stuck with peg warmers, because Target pays up front a percentage, as far as I know. I'm not an expert on that, but I believe it's more like the comic shop model, where you commit and you buy a certain amount, and if you get stuck with them, you have to end up kicking them off to Ross or these discount stores, and you basically barely make your money back, if at all.
Yeah.
And Target doesn't want to put money into something they might barely make their money back in. So yeah, you can't really. I know everybody's mad because everybody wants them, and you can't find them when you go in stores. I go in stores and there's empty pegs, and it makes me mad too. But we have to understand the rationale for it from Target's perspective.
Absolutely. I think there's a serious impatience. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. Like, I get impatient too. But I think especially this, like the last year and kind of going into this year, I've been very fortunate to have like friends pick a lot of this stuff up for me, because I haven't been going into stores. So it's been really nice that they've been able to get stuff for me. So I'm aware that I've been very, very fortunate in that regard. But I think like I'm still waiting on Infantry. I'm still waiting on my Zartan Pulse figure to come through, even though thanks Hasbro, I did get one in the FanFest mailer box, which was amazing.
Oh wow.
So that was really nice. But like the fact that you've got lots of these figures that I'm seeing people playing with. I'm seeing Flint and Jay everywhere. I'm not seeing them until June or July or something. I don't know when they're coming in, but it's not soon. So there's none
of us are good at being patient these days. We're at impulsive purchasing and delivery society. We expect Amazon service on everything.
Exactly.
When I order it today, I expect it tomorrow, maybe the next day if they're pushing it.
Really pushing it.
and so it sets that, and that hurts me with 3D Joes, with books and posters, man. When people order and then I actually wait until next week to ship, because I ship once a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get mad with that, and you're just like, dude, I'm not Amazon with robots packing this stuff. I've got to get away from my profitable video business to go do this $5 poster business. That's not top priority. I hate to break it to you guys. Yeah. But anyway, so people expect immediate gratification. And so it's been very hard on people to, I'll give you an example. I place pre-orders on Hasbro Pulse. I place pre-orders on Big Bad Toy Store. The 3 new statues just came out, Serpentor, Destro, and Baroness, and they look awesome. I got the first 3 also, Cobra Commander, Snake Eyes, and Storm Shadow from PCS Statues. And those 3 statues started dropping at GameStop. GameStop already put them on sale.
Yeah.
And my Hasbro Pulse pre-order hadn't even shipped yet. So I was like, well, cancel that one and buy it from GameStop and get it on sale. And I saved like $10. And they just got delivered like 5 minutes before this podcast. And it was within 2 days. So props to GameStop.
Yeah.
But that's Exhibit A, that I'm impatient just like everybody else. I could have waited a little bit. My Hasbro Pulse order would have been delivered. So we're all impatient because we've been trained.
Yeah. It's definitely a learned behavior, isn't it, of recent kind of the last kind of 10 years. But I would say that with the pulse orders, I get the pulse orders in knowing that is just a safe bet for the future. And I can get, because I'm the same as you. I like to get 2 of each, and when it's an army build, and possibly 3 if possible. But again, I know that isn't always going to be the case. Especially with the some of the exclusive stuff, but that aspect of it, like I use Hasbro Pulse effectively as like a safety net, so I know they're going to come. I don't know when they're going to come, but I know they'll come eventually. So yeah, that's kind of how I view it as.
I think that's a smart strategy, because I've heard of Target canceling orders. I've never heard of Hasbro Pulse canceling orders.
No.
I've heard a lot of people griping like, well, I pre-ordered and now people are getting them through other resources first, like I just did with GameStop.
Yeah.
So I've heard that beef, but I've never heard that Hasbro cancels orders. And Target, they'll dangle you. Amazon will too. Amazon's very guilty of this as well. You'll place the pre-order, they'll give you a notification like, hey, sorry, we're gonna have to deliver it a little later than we said we would.
Delay
and they
first.
string you along like this high school girl that you're chasing for years, and you're never gonna land that woman.
Delay.
You gotta cut bait on that. Yeah. And then they cancel you at the end, like you graduate high school and you never got to date her. She was stringing you along the whole time. That didn't happen to me. It's not a personal story.
that sounds like a pain right there. I would also say Walmart's the worst for that too. Like, man, they have been canceling constantly.
I will be the one voice of Walmart actually didn't hose me. I actually got all my retro pre-orders. So I'll be the one voice in the community that for some reason they delivered.
Congratulations on that. I don't think I
feel a little guilty.
I've had the only thing I've managed to get from Walmart was the little set of Jada minifigs. Yeah. That's the only thing I've managed to get from them. Everything else has been cancelled, unfortunately. Yeah. Anyway, enough of the moaning about that aspect. Sure. Moving on into the actual interview, and Lenny made some really interesting points regarding the decisions behind the kids' 6-inch line as well, didn't he? And that was, I think, off a question that you'd posed about the decision behind 6-inch over 4-inch, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, when I read back when there were spoilers, some stuff had been put in the computer system at one of the retailers that there was going to be $9.99 figures for the Snake Eyes movie. I was like, great, we're getting more 4-inch modern. They figured out how to trim the price from 13 to 10.
Yeah.
It all made sense in my head, and my head was totally wrong. So what they were planning instead was these lower articulation $9.99 6-inch figures. And so I asked them the question, why do 6-inch lower articulation figures for $9.99 instead of satisfying that large portion of the community that wants 4-inch modern to continue beyond just what they're doing with retro? And he had a good answer, man. I did want to dig a little deeper and ask a follow-up question. So we'll cover what he said, but then we'll cover kind of what my thoughts were beyond that.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to follow up on. He said that, he had some anecdotal evidence. He was watching his daughter play with her toys, and when she would bring him toys, it would be the 6-inch ones. He had a Spider-Man figure in hand. And he said that's what kids are going for. That's what kids are playing with. That's the shifting of the play patterns.
Yeah, playing to the trend, basically, isn't it? Yeah. And
I get that. My follow-up question would have been, I know you guys do market research. Does the market research bear that out, right? Has there been any kind of metric-based analytical, analysis of the market to show? Because the same, we got to be honest with ourselves too. We love 3 3/4 inch and 4 inch as GI Joe collectors ever since '82. We love it, but look at what happened with Marvel. Yeah. They were doing Marvel Black Series 4-inch figures, and they were doing Marvel Black Series 6-inch figures. What happened to the 4-inch figures? Why did those go away?
Yeah,
maybe people just genuinely aren't buying them.
Yeah.
Maybe GI Joe fans are actually the minority in wanting 4-inch figures, and they're playing to a wider audience because they've determined that the 4-inch GI Joe collector fans are not enough to prop up a line. That could be the case, and we need to. I would like to follow up with them. Statistically speaking, what market analysis have you been doing? What are you basing that on beyond the anecdotal story that he shared?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would assume, like that a lot of market research is done at Hasbro before they make decisions like that. You just kind of assume that would be almost a certainty before they actually made many decisions on what they're actually putting out there. And I kind of, you've definitely seen it over time, going through the aisles in the last 10 years before Toys R Us was shut down, which has been really devastating for not just like me. It's been devastating for me. And like all of the not just toy kids though, like don't get to experience that anymore.
Yeah,
and
horrible.
I find that really sad because that was one of the most amazing feelings to me, going into a Toys R Us and it just being like this, walls of product and just being like, oh my God. And because of, and going through the aisles, I'll continue my point, but not seeing as much 4-inch, not seeing as much 3 3/4. You started seeing like in the Marvel runs, like they'd have like Hulk and Captain America and whatever movie was out. You'd see like a few 3 3/4 sets, and then they just started disappearing, those things. And like you say, the was it Marvel Universe or what, Ultimates or something, where it was the 4-inch figures, and they just disappeared out of nowhere. And it was just Legends. It just seemed like it was only Legends. And I guess like it was following the trends, and that's what we've got now. And with GI Joe, we've come into it like in this era, and there's been a bit of resistance, but for the most part, I think a lot of people have enjoyed the detail you can get at that scale, the quality that you can get at that scale, and I think it's still got its fans, it's still got its detractors, obviously. But I think, how do you feel about the 6-inch thing? Do you want to see both?
Yeah, I'm totally willing. Obviously, I've got all my figures to partake in the 6-inch, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I do not think that G.I. Joe needs to be limited to one scale. And I hope that their future plans are not to limit G.I. Joe to one scale.
Yeah.
They are all in on classified. They talked throughout the interview about having a long-term plan, about pacing things correctly so that they could keep classified on the shelves beyond the movie. And I love their ambition there. They talked about how most toy lines don't last on the shelves more than a couple years. And these days, when it's event-based, if it's movie-based, video game-based, whatever, it's very rare for lines to stay on the shelves for more than a couple years. They have ambitions that G.I. Joe will stay on the shelves. Obviously, up front, we've had problems. There's been pegs with G.I. Joe names on it, but not product. And so I love their ambition, but we've got to get the distribution and fulfillment stuff straightened out, get the products on the pegs that are set aside for them. It's been way more successful, I think, than Target obviously anticipated. Walmart, too. My Walmart pegs have been mostly empty. It's very rare. They've had pegs set aside, but it's been very rare that I go in there and there's a lot of G.I. Joe on the pegs, compared to like He-Man, where there's a He-Man and Skeletor on every He-Man peg, you know? So there's been some frustration there, but I absolutely want them to go hard on 6-inch, do what they're doing. That's where their excitement is. And obviously that's where their market research is telling them to invest their time and money. So I get that. But traditionally, G.I. Joe is a 3 3/4 and 4-inch brand from 82 to now. I realize 64 to 76. I'm not discounting those guys, but the days of dressing dolls and taking clothes on and off, I think that's done. So we have to move on from that generation. But I think the 3 3/4 and 4-inch scale can work. And there are a couple lines that, show that there's still life in that format. Be it Jurassic Park.
Absolutely. They Legacy Collection's incredible. Love that line.
Yeah. They're doing some great stuff there, and I see crossover people picking those up. There was one other I had in mind, and it just left my mind. But anyway, there's at least a couple iterations of 3 3/4 still coming out, and I absolutely would love to see G.I. Joe continue growing in that scale. But very well, I also asked the O-ring question.
Well, before we get to that, and
we'll
sticking with 4-inch, Retro Collection was also mentioned, wasn't it? So that was another thing, and that again, another positive answer. It's we'll expect to see more in June, so we will be getting more Retro Collection in June. And they couldn't really talk about what characters are coming, obviously, but definitely expect reveals in June. So that's just a quick comment on that. Now, let's come to your O-ring thing now, because that was a great little drop. And let's face it, I was not expecting that answer.
I wasn't expecting that answer either. And honestly, like in the little Cliff's notes that I posted up, I put that last because I want people to understand this isn't something they brought up. This is something that we asked about, and they responded very surprisingly in a favorable manner to this question. So that was exciting, but it's the bottom of the news, right? The retro stuff is actual product that's actually coming, that's been planned, and is, I'm sure, already manufactured. Wave 4 was teased by His Tank like back in January. So we already know I think there's 3 figures in Wave 4. I don't think, just to stay on retro for one quick second, they didn't say anything about vehicles though, Chris, right?
No, but we didn't really ask them that, did we?
We didn't dig deep. Yeah. We only had, to be fair, like 20, 25 minutes. So I think we jammed a lot in there. Okay,
we got the important stuff in there, I think.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask about O-ring, man. I'm a kid of the 80s. I love the stuff. And we've heard for years from people that used to be with Hasbro, for example, at JoeCon in person, face to face, hey, O-ring's not going to happen. We've heard that.
Yeah.
I've had former representatives of the brand tell me, O-ring's not going to happen. We got rid of the tooling. They're too expensive to tool up. It's just not going to happen. So we've heard that. And a lot of people, are deflated and kind of give up on it and walk away. I'm like, hey, new day, new brand team. Let's bring it up, because people are still asking for it. And I'll talk about the elephant in the room here, Chris, and you might edit this out if you want to, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
O-ring is alive and well in the hands of knockoff artists.
I'm not going to cut that
out.
And
if knockoff artists can make it profitably for 12 years now, right? I'm not even going to call him out by name. You all know who he is, right? I've got his toys on my shelves. If he can make it profitably for the last 12 years, I just can't believe that Hasbro can't make it profitably through much bigger distribution channels than this guy's doing. And I understand there's economic metrics that are totally different between like a knockoff artist and a company, a for-profit company.
Yeah.
But if he can manufacture O-ring and get over the rivet cost and the T-hook cost and what have you, and make it happen, I want to see Hasbro doing that. You know, I want that money to go to Hasbro. This is Hasbro's intellectual property. This is Hasbro's toys. I want Hasbro to be making those. And so I'm so hungry for O-ring. And I know there's so many people out there that are like me that are hungry for it. And there's the opportunity. It's a target rich environment. If you think about, you know, making a true, really great 80s style October Guard set.
Yeah.
Or Pythona from the movie.
Yeah.
Or Big Lob, who doesn't have Mercer's head. Let's give Big Lob a head that looks like Big Lob. For example,
there's plenty of options to fill.
There's dozens and dozens.
Characters from the Sunbow cartoon, characters from the
cartoon
comics,
characters, the admirals,
sorts.
the fish lady that Shipwreck partners up with. You know, just any of them. You could do a Worlds Without End alternate universe, like
the skeletons of
anniversary set. You could get a skeleton.
Of Clutch, Grunt, and Steeler.
Yes. So the point is they have a very rich intellectual property to tap into. There's a format that's proven that people have been propping up through alternative channels for 12 years. I want to see Hasbro, you know, appeal to that audience. And one of the things they mentioned that was important to them was not only to seek out new audiences, i.e. the $9.99 Ninja Force 6-inch figures that they hope will be brought in with the movie. They also want to reconnect with the old school collectors like us, but that haven't been sucked back in yet.
Yeah.
I don't know what your point of being sucked back in was. Mine was 25th anniversary retro card backs on the shelves. A light switch flipped, and I was like, "Oh my god, I still love GI Joe." You know,
it was Sigma 6 weirdly for me.
Sigma 6 got you.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I was out of it in '94 because there were no figures out anymore, so I kind of bowed out. But then when in '97 came along and we got those other figures, I wasn't aware of that. So I wasn't aware of like Joe versus Cobra, Spy Troops, all of that stuff. That was all much later in life that I found about that.
Yep.
So when I was in New York and Sigma 6 had been out, and I remember seeing Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow figures, and I'm like, sweet. So I just ended up grabbing a few Snake Eyes figures. Just happened to be in the US at the time working. And I was like, right, great, grab those, flew back home, like absolutely loved them. And that kind of got me then looking at other things. And then it was comic packs and it was things like that started trickling out, like the direct-to-consumer stuff. There was that weird 12-inch Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow that came out randomly in like a 2-pack box set.
I remember that.
Like slightly more simple in their designs, but like really like quite cool still.
But it was their classic designs. It was version 1 Storm Shadow and version 2 Snake Eyes. I remember that set. Yeah.
And I remember just being like, these are really cool, and like you really enjoying getting back into it, finding Spy Troops, finding and then I was back in, and then 25th happened, and it was like, wow. And then I was fully on board at that point. That was the one that brought me back in and fully. Yeah, totally.
Well, they realized, and they talked about on that interview that we are a necessary demographic, and we are a demographic that they want to grow and continue to connect with, the people like us before we got sucked back in.
Yeah.
And so I truly do feel like the retro packaging artwork and the retro style O-ring is a fantastic way to reconnect with that audience. So
absolutely,
we'll see if anything comes from it. So what do you want to kind of recall what their responses were?
They first of all, they said that they said that they're absolutely aware of that because Lenny and Ben Montano and Lenny Panzica are both from that old school style. Like, they love those figures. Ben mentioned he still had in a bag all of his old figures. He said he wasn't the same as we are, where we're like displaying it all over the place, but he's like, he has his childhood GI Joe figures and he loves them. So the O-ring is something that, the O-ring design, the O-ring aesthetic is something that they're really into. Now, what they said was it's on their minds. They're aware that the community is something that the community wants. They listen. They sweep the socials. They're always checking to see what like the trends and what people are actually into and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that jumped out at me was the fact that they're waiting to be able to do it correctly, and that was something that stood out to me as like, that's an interesting point, because that, O-ring construction, if we're talking strict O-ring construction, I don't think we'll see that. I think we'll see faux ring. I think we'll see that aspect of it, but then it's working out what's the best way to do that. How is it best to implement within a wave of figures where you can reuse certain parts and so on and so forth. All the classic things you have to think about and consider within budgets and so on and so forth. So I think that was a really interesting response from them. And the fact that they're like, we're aware, we know, and it is not dead, are very, very important things that they said, within that interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to not have it shot down, just to not have that response that I got at Joe Con's past of, hey, look, I'm sorry, it's dead, the molds are gone, it's not coming back. We didn't get that response, and so that to me was very hopeful. They said that they were excited by it. Like, they see the chatter, they see people talking about it, they're taking note of it, they scrub social media, they look at the comments, so that's why coming away on Wednesday with the notes, I was like, you guys, they hear you. Keep talking about it, right?
Exactly.
They're reading
keep that chatter going.
Keep talking, but also, be positive.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The thing. That's the thing I wanted to drive home, and that's how I finished my little write-up. These are 4 human beings that genuinely care about the brand, that are probably the only people actively on the planet within a position of power to make something happen.
Exactly.
That could give us what we want. So don't be so rude to them, man. Like, they're working with limited resources. They're given the resources and time allotment, that they're given to work on this brand. I'm sure they work on other stuff, So I'd say, Mom told me you catch more bees with honey.
Yes.
Let's be nice, positive reinforcement. Tell them what we like that they're doing.
I was going to use the other version of that saying, but I'm glad I won't have to beep it that way. So I'm glad you used the honey version.
Right. I mean, I went to design school, right? We learned the constructive criticism sandwich, man. Start in with what you're liking about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then tell them what you're missing from what they're doing. And then say thank you for even listening.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't have to listen to us. I mean, we're buying their products. And so if they're not making something we like, we'll stop buying and they'll feel it that way. But that just means G.I. Joe goes away.
Yeah.
That's not constructive for us folks that love the brand and want it to do well.
And also, if you think from a human perspective, if I'm getting like reams and reams and reams of like not just negative, but like downright aggressively rude, nasty comments, you try to screen it out, so you're not even being necessarily seen. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's another aspect of it. Yet someone that goes to that length of a constructively criticism, literally go, right, what is the analytical, critical way to look at this? Like, properly breaking something down, putting it out there and explaining it, rather than just saying this is crap. It's why is it crap in your opinion? Like, explain yourself. So that's a really important aspect, and I'm glad you kind of brought that up as well. And kind of not linked to that, but like moving on through the interview, we came back to classified, and there was a few aspects in there that were really interesting. So obviously one of those things was new developments with Build-A-Figure or other diorama pieces that we might see in the future. I posed the question, will we see that in the classified line? And again, we got a very positive response of, well, classified is still finding its feet in a sense, and it's looking at the line, it's new, it's kind of fresh, it's still finding its way. It was started as like a heavy gear and accessories kind of line, and now they're going to be looking, and in going forward into the future, they're going to be looking at ways to develop it and to make it better and to make it more interesting. So those things might be, I'm not saying we're going to get Build-A-Figures and we're going to get these dio pieces in the future, but that they're going to be looking at new ways to implement, new ideas within the line, which again was really, a very positive way to explain that.
Yeah, and G.I. Joe in 1982 was launched as a vehicle line.
Vehicles as well,
and that's something we haven't talked about. And we did touch on it briefly with them, the ability to do 6-inch scale vehicles. Where are they at with that development beyond the Baroness coil, the motorcycle? and they said they were absolutely working on. I mean, Lenny looked very eager to make vehicles. Lenny wants to make vehicles. You could just tell. But from a practicality standpoint, they want to make sure that it is as well executed as the 6-inch figures are. And so it sounds like they're finding that balance of probably cost and profitability models.
Yeah.
To make sure that they can make that work. Candidly, so I would say I would posit this: what if you did a 5-figure pack with a Cobra snake armor in it? You had a leg, arm, and torso. Arm, and torso. It's a 5-pack.
Amazing.
It just seems like a no-brainer. And I also believe like you could maybe do something like a Skyhawk, where you have the top canopy, bottom canopy, engine turret, and landing gear. Split that out over 4 or 5 figures. Here's my message: if they can't figure out how to make the vehicles profitable as a standalone item, perhaps we could work some small vehicles in a Build-A-Figure set. Here's one more example. What if we did a Dreadnought set that had Zartan's Chameleon in it?
Yeah,
in a
few
pieces.
Totally. Yeah.
Torch, Ripper, Buzzer, and I don't think a Chameleon would take a 5-pack to roll it out, is what I'm getting at there. I think maybe a 3-pack of Dreadnoughts, and you could have your Chameleon set.
You've got to have the big square bucket though as well, haven't you, with the skis?
Just the trunk to put the parts in. That's so ridiculous. It was ridiculous then. It would be ridiculous now. I don't want to take up package space for that thing personally. We're 50-50 here, so you guys weigh in the comments. Do you want the Chameleon bucket?
Yeah. Do you want the bucket? Because I'm saying yes. He's saying no.
I'm saying no. Yep. But there's plenty of examples like that. Cobra Claw. There's plenty. It doesn't even have
to necessarily be vehicles. We can look at things like pack rats, and we can look at things like the checkpoint and the mini sets.
Outpost Defender. Exactly. I love it. Those little battle sets.
Bivouac. Just
Bivouac
all of those
would be amazing.
It'd be so cool. Rifle range. There is so many cool things you can bring into, and I can see this being done, especially for things like SDCC exclusive stuff, where the package might be deluxe, might be a bit bigger. I'd love to see things like that, and if it's if it's an actual thing they release as one big thing, great. If it's separated into like a wave of classified figures, like a Marvel Build-A-Figure, then also really, really cool. So it's them finding out a way to work this out the right way, and I don't think we're going to be getting
Lenny's concerned from a quality standpoint, a design standpoint, I'm sure a play feature standpoint.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people that are like, yes, that's great, but can it be profitable? We're a for-profit business. We have to do things that we can turn a profit on. And so I would just posit, if they can't sell individual vehicles on their own, could they investigate this Build-A-Figure thing?
Absolutely.
To lump it in, how does it go with the Marvel Build-A-Figures? Does the price jump from 20 to 25 or something, or is it the same price?
Honestly don't know, because they've been doing Build-A-Figures now for so long. I can't remember what it was like without that. And I know they do some like movie sets where it isn't a Build-A-Figure, but I think the Shang-Chi figure, I'm not sure if there's a Build-A-Figure in that. You see, I don't know.
They more often do it with Build-A-Figure than without, right? Like they'll put out a wave of 6 figures now, and oddly, like maybe 5 of them or 4 of them will have the Build-A-Figure part, and there'll be 1 or 2 figures that don't have a Build-A-Figure part, but those 1 or 2 figures are the same price as the rest of them.
I believe so. Yeah. Well, in any case, I'd be down for that. I'm not going to lie.
Totally.
And also related to vehicles in the classified sense, and also retro, I did ask a little tongue-in-cheek question at the end about HasLab and whether the G.I. Joe brand had been considered for it. Now, I posed it that way because I knew they weren't going to say, like, they didn't want them to be like, yes, we're doing a G.I. Joe HasLab thing, because they can't say that. They can't also say what they are doing if they are doing something for HasLab, whether it's for retro or for classified. So I posed it in such a way where, has the G.I. Joe brand been considered for a HasLab project? And the answer was an almost immediate yes.
Yeah, it was a resounding yes, but it wasn't a meaty yes with anything following it. Right?
Exactly. So read between the lines on that one, but effectively, the Joe brand has been considered for HasLab. Now,
I'm gonna do some crystal ball brainwashing here. They did not announce a Cobra troop transport helicopter.
Well, I was going to actually ask you, what do you think would be an ideal? Because in my head, right. Well, I thought when the retro line came out, I thought this reminds me a little bit of when the Katana, the big sail barge, was brought out for HasLab, and they realised, we haven't really been doing vintage collection figures for a while. Let's bring some more vintage figures out You know, it kind of felt to me like when Retro came out, I'm thinking, are they laying the groundwork here for a Retro HasLab where it's like, and again, I don't know this is just me speculating, like a hideous speculator, but it's like, are they doing something like a Retro HasLab? Because that would make sense to me. Like a big playset for the smaller figures would make sense. A big vehicle for the small figures would make sense. But, you know, if we're talking classified, there's still scope for that, right?
Yeah, I think you could get away with doing a large-scale vehicle for the 4-inch scale, or maybe a mid-size vehicle for the 6-inch scale. I think they could definitely go either direction with it, but I think they're going to go with the 4-inch Cobra troop transport helicopter.
That would be wicked, though, wouldn't it? That would be
I mean, honestly,
gorgeous
didn't
to see.
somebody do some polls about that a while back, and they lasted for a while, and there was a few different options up there, and the Cobra, I think it was Skinny Ted, Skinny Joe fan.
Yeah.
That did this poll, and you know, he got the word out there and he got a lot of votes on it, and I think the community was definitely in favor of that transport helicopter.
I would love to see that thing.
You swap it out, you can pull the his tank up, you drop that down, you could have a troop carrier and carry that.
It could come with that you know, that cart container section that just slots in there. That can come out, and then you can just carry all sorts of different cool stuff. I think it would be amazing, and I think it would be one of those things where you could have other aspects brought in, like you could have straps, you know, where you know there's kind of long straps where they have to carry something like quite a distance away from the actual helicopter,
right?
Like things like that could be added as additional extras. You know,
you'd have plenty of stretch goals, man. Different attachments for different vehicles, making sure things work well together with previous products that they made. I mean, essentially, it's a helicopter skeleton with a very skinny, tall back and a tail and just some long wheels. You know, and then everything that goes inside could be a stretch goal.
Absolutely.
Right? So you could start with just the helicopter, you know, and make sure that it works with the his tank and have whatever attachment you need for that. But beyond that, you got the troop carrier, you got all the different vehicle attachments, you got the drop down that you were just talking about. They could stretch goal the heck out of this thing.
You could have a winch that comes out as well. That would be freaking amazing. And then on the winch, you could have, like, additionally, a netting that would contain something like a box or something else, and then that could be
GI Joes.
Exactly, and that could be hooked on like to the winch, which I mean it's got
to have the winch functionality, like has to be at the top, where you're holding the helicopter and you're like or it's probably just a wheel that you kind of scrub like that, and it and like pulls the thing up. There's so much potential there.
I mean, the Tomahawk. Does the Eagle Hawk have it? It does, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, the little hook comes out of the bottom.
Yeah, I know the Tomahawk does, but I couldn't remember if the Eagle Hawk does. I'm sure it must.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't remember. I felt like the Eagle Hawk was an upgrade in every way, though, so I would be surprised if it didn't.
I mean, it's gorgeous. The Eagle. It's one of my favorite vehicles.
They did an amazing job.
The Tomahawk was brilliant, and somehow they made it better. I don't know how that's even friggin' possible.
And then you can make the Eagle Hawk even better if you take Retaliation Roadblock's gun and put that on the gun mount.
On the side, yes.
It looks amazing. It looks amazing.
No, I'm a big fan of that. Anyway, I
think when you look at HasLab previous performance, when you look at what they did with the Katana, they gave Star Wars fans a vehicle that they never got, but that was very big in the movie. It had a huge scene that everybody, you know, loves and remembers. Boba Fett in it, Luke Skywalker in it, Jabba the Hutt in it. It's a popular scene, popular vehicle that Star Wars fans never got. This is kind of similar to that. This helicopter has been floating around in the comics since the near beginning, and everybody wants it. So it just seems like that would be the natural to give us something new, not just to make his tank version 32 or 6-inch scale his tank, which while it would be cool, I don't think it would generate the same amount of buzz in the community.
I agree. I think that's a really cool thing, and it does. I mean, it would look cool as well. It would be amazing. It's got a name now. It's an Aspid, so it's got like this name attached to it too.
Right. So what's that stand for? Do you know?
Oh, it's something like aerial. Search, and I can't remember what it is now, but it's been called an Aspid in the comics. So That's
we'll have to ask Larry.
Actually, Skinny will know. Ask Skinny.
He sure will.
But no, ask Larry. Larry, who writes the frigging comic. Let's ask Larry, mate. I mean that was the interview main. I mean we've kind of like scrimped and pulled out the best bits from what was said and what we can actually talk about. But it was a great interview to be involved in, and I just want to say as well, I'm sure you'll back me up on this as well, Carson. Big thank you to Hasbro for allowing us the opportunity to do that. It was great to be involved, wasn't it, mate?
That was a big fanboy moment for me. Not to like brown nose again, but here I go, man. I tend to be nice to people that I respect and appreciate. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And these people are working hard to, create a resurgence in our favorite brand that we've invested years of our lives. We've loved it since we were a kid, but personally, like, you work your butt off on the full force, and I work my butt off on 3D
Yeah,
Joes.
I was going to say, you do.
I work my butt off on 3D Joes. Absolutely. I'll own up to that. The last 9 years, I've committed a healthy portion of my life to it. So for us, these are the people that are responsible for creating a resurgence in a brand that we obviously love so much. So we got to start with gratitude, and to be able to interview them, one-on-one, two-on-one was amazing. I was curious, Chris, did you get the feeling, were there other people that were going to interview them that day, or were we like the special chosen two? I thought we were just one of many.
It appears that there were many, many interviews done. I'm not sure how many people did G.I. Joe things, though. I think
Interesting.
But it was I did feel very special, I must admit, when I logged in, and I thought it was going to be like 10 people. That were going to be doing this, and having just the two of us on there, I was like, okay, I feel really special right now.
It's like we've hit the big time here. No, it was
you
super
can
nice.
actually call it that, but yeah,
it was very intimate. It was an intimate interview setting, and much appreciated. I think if there was more than just you and me, like, we've got enough to talk about with them, right? So
exactly.
Like, anybody else would start to get crowded in there. But yeah, I think beyond that, I kind of expected that other news outlets would be talking to them as well, and we'd see news trickling out from them. And I don't think I've seen any yet.
No,
so
I think. Well, another thing I have to kind of say as well. I'm currently in communication with Hasbro about like permissions and stuff, but we were told unequivocally during our interview that we were only allowed to record it for our own personal records. So that was really very trusting of them to allow us to do that, but we weren't allowed to share the actual interview. We could talk about what we discussed, and we could report on what had been said, but we couldn't share the interview. And we were like, okay, that's not a problem at all. We did what we did. I did the news burst. You posted the information as like a nice kind of like easier to kind of consume post on
Cliff
socials.
Cliff Notes is what we call them here in the States. We grew up with those books as kids, right? So you'd have a novel that you were supposed to read for school, and then you had the Cliff Notes, which was like 20 pages, and you would just read the Cliff Notes.
Of course you would. Why would you do a book report when you can read someone else's book report?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. And so we were told that, and then we come off that and we do our thing. And loads of people were saying, why aren't you sharing the actual interview?
Right.
Why aren't you showing that? And I said, well, we're not allowed to. And then getting a bit of heat for that. And it was like, well, we were told not to. And then I saw lots of other places sharing their interviews, and lo and behold, a couple of days later being told to take them down. So, that's why, guys, we were told no. Now, I have been in touch with Hasbro, and I've asked them if I've sent them an edited version of said interview, and I've asked if that's possible to share, get their sign off on it. If there's anything they want removed, then we will remove it, and then we'll put it up as we were allowed to. But I'm not going to be posting that because we were told we couldn't do so. So I'm not going to jeopardize the opportunities we've been given. And you'll just have to trust us, I'm afraid, at the end of the day. Now, if they do come back and they sign off on it, then you'll get you'll get an edited version of the interview, but you'll get hopefully what we discussed and what we've discussed since. But I will make it clear now that it will be an edited version, and it will be up to Hasbro whether that gets shared or not. At the moment, I'm just waiting on confirmation.
And I think it's a fair disclaimer to make right now that pretty much everything we just talked about was everything we talked about.
Absolutely.
We didn't hold anything back. They didn't tell us like, okay, so I'm going to tell you this, or I'm going to show you this package or whatever, and we're just not telling you. We're telling you everything.
Yeah.
So you're just not watching an unedited video. I think it's more about presentation and performance that they're worried about. I don't think they're worried at all about the content. Like what they told us, we're reporting it. So I think they're just being more image conscious. Maybe.
Absolutely.
That's my guess.
Well,
the
like
one thing
I said,
we didn't.
As soon as I get confirmation, I'll post and let everyone know. But for now, you'll just have to put up with me and Carson talking about it.
That's right. And I just remembered one last thing that we talked about that we didn't talk about on this video, and that was the $9.99 packaging to differentiate from the $19.99 classified figures. So the $19.99 classified figures are all in these boxes. They're six-sided, tall. Whatever, about an inch and a half. These are not going to be like that. The $9.99 figures are going to be on a flat card back with the blister bubble attached to it, and they're going to have artwork that is inspired by the movie. My follow-up question to Hasbro was, is that going to be photography from the movie, or is that going to be illustrations inspired by the movie? And it sounded like they haven't answered that yet, but in our conversation with them, and Chris, please weigh in here if you heard it differently.
Yeah.
But it didn't sound like they were going to do photos from the movie. It sounded like maybe they were going to do illustrations that were inspired by the movie, but they would be consistent as a cohesive little sub brand. All these $9.99 figures are going to have probably one illustrator, whereas Classified has a different illustrator for each box.
What I surmised actually was the fact that we've probably seen some of it already. So the image they dropped before FanFest, which was on the Snake Eyes one, I imagine. I love that. I think it's amazing.
I'll take it. If every package is that quality, I will take it.
I think that's what we're going to see for like the kind of, the main Snake Eyes will probably have that. Storm Shadow will be very similar. It's kind of like drawn. It's like it's going to be like obviously inspired from the film, but definitely artistically created, like digital art or something along those lines. But yeah, that's what I assume. And we'll find out soon.
I think we've covered everything.
We've done it, man.
Absolutely everything.
We've hit it all up. Dude, thank you so much for joining me on this weekly episode today, mate. Really appreciate it. And,
my pleasure,
we'll have to get you back on again soon to talk about your big situation with 3D Joes, encompassing Yo-Joe, Joe Declassified, Joe Intel.
Yeah.
James
Real
Kavanaugh
American
Jr.'s
Hero,
RAHC guide.
James Kavanaugh. Dude, it's crazy. When you... For those out there that don't know James Kavanaugh and the labor that he's put into those RAHC guides, the photography that he's already taken, look up RAHC guides. So he's going to be probably the primary driving force between 97 to now for 4-inch figure stuff.
Definitely.
But the Joe Declassified guys are brilliant collectors of pre-production that have done so many interviews with the creators, all that kind of stuff. Like if you like the Ron Rudat page and the Kirk Bazigian page, I'm working on Guy Cassaday and Mark Pennington right now.
Brilliant.
Those will be robust interview-driven pages with tons of assets and elements. If you love that kind of stuff, get ready for a lot more of it.
Mate,
and
cannot wait.
Yeah, and then Nomads and Jamie are going to be taking the reins on the international stuff. They're huge international collectors, and everybody is welcome to contribute, and there'll be more to come on that. So I'm just setting up the infrastructure. But yeah, we could do another interview at another time.
We'll definitely chat about that. But really exciting stuff. And let's face it, it's a really good time for Joe fans. And I'm just really happy to be kind of involved, and the way that we are at the moment. This is a lot of fun.
You're doing great work, brother. You're doing great work. So just keep it up, man. I know it's a largely thankless task, but I'll tell you, man. Every fan out there that gives us that positive feedback. I don't know about you, but my love language is words of affirmation. So
I love it.
Never hurts, man. Never hurts to say thank you or I'm enjoying the site or whatever.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. We get some lovely messages from people and some lovely comments. Obviously, it's always the kind of the nasty ones that stick out a little bit. But honestly, it's not that often, and I need to let go of that. Unfortunately,
for sure,
it's going to happen.
Sure. You got to grow a thicker skin, man. But it's fuel in the tank, guys. So if you're appreciating the work that Chris is doing, let him know.
Yeah,
it's fuel in the tank. It keeps us going.
Come on, subscribe, like, enjoy. Yeah, comment.
Right on.
Anyway, thank you so much, Carson, mate.
My pleasure.
We're going to zip back over to Pat now and talk shout-outs. Mate, thanks so much. And
I'm going to do my disappearing act. You can do Pat's approach. Ready?
Do it.
Yo, Joe.
Okay, we are back with shout-outs, and Pat, normally I'll go first on this one, but I'm going to let you go first. Tell us if you've got anything caught your eye this week, or have you got any shout-outs? What do you want to say?
Oh, man. You caught me off guard because I really should have been thinking. There was something earlier this week that I was going to mention, and now I don't remember who it was to give the shout-out. Other than Philip, as always.
There we go.
There was another shout-out of something really cool that I saw that now it escapes me. Maybe I'll get to it next week.
Well, in that case, if you remember it after I've done mine, then you can just jump on the end of that. But
okay.
As always, of course, I have to give a massive shout-out to all the family and to my wonderful wife, Kate. Love you guys to bits. And also, in relation to my family, because he is my family, to my little lad, Max, my little pupper. He turned 14 years young on Wednesday, so big shout out to the sweetest of little lads. And he's just popped into the vet as well today. He's having feeling a little bit ill. It's probably a hangover from his birthday. He got a little bit wasted on heroin. He didn't. I made that up. But big shout out to you, Max. I love you, buddy. You're the best. And also to Phoebe, because she always barks when we do these shows, and you hear her in the background. So that's Phoebe if you hear her. To Brian Sauer, who continues to create some amazing graphics for us. He did some beautiful work on the last FanFest episode we did as well for the movie style designs. We've also been working on a new design for what we're going to be calling Redacted. And that is going to be our new series that looks at just the interviews that we do. So from now on, the interviews won't be combined into the news burst. They're going to be a separate thing. Any interviews we do are going to be called Redacted, Full Force Redacted, which we thought was really cool and really interesting. And it gave us some cool ideas for visuals. So expect some brilliant stuff from Brian there. Also to John Comer for picking me up more Micro Machines, Series 4 this time, and he added a few other little surprises in there too. Thank you, my good man. And to his son Jace, who signed the box and even added a little sticker as well. Jace, you're a great lad. Keep being awesome. Thank you, guys. Also, I'd love to take this opportunity to thank Hasbro once again for all the great opportunities they've given me and the show over the last few weeks. Ben Montano, Hayley Sinnott, Paul Strickland, and of course Lenny Panzica for letting myself and Carson interview them this week. It was a ton of fun. We truly appreciate the opportunity. Also, big shout out to Lawrence at Rogers & Cowan, PMK, for being the absolute best at answering all my emails and having to deal with my constant pestering regarding all the Hasbro interviews we get to do. You're all great people, and I absolutely love working with you guys. In relation to that, we have another Hasbro interview coming soon where we'll be chatting with Lenny once again and sculptor Corey Cantalupe, so you can look forward to that. And continuing what we've been saying for the past however many weeks now, we stand with the Asian and Pacific Islander communities in saying stop Asian hate, and we'll continue to do so. Follow the links in the description if you want more information or just want to do more to help out. And of course, to our patrons, listeners and viewers, we truly appreciate all that you do for us by supporting us, by watching us, by listening to us, and by contributing, in the ways that you do for the patrons and all that kind of stuff too. We truly, truly appreciate it. Pat, have you remembered any more at this stage?
No, I'm getting old.
It's unfortunately the problem for both of us. As I forgot I even owned a bunch of stuff earlier today in a message group I've been... Anyway, that's irrelevant. Anyway, Pat, it's been a pleasure as always, mate. Thank you for jumping on and chatting the G.I. Joe news with me this week, buddy.
Hey, thanks again.
Any frickin' time. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you for watching the Full Force Weekly. Massive thank you to my awesome co-hosts, Patrick Notpicard Stewart and Carson 3D Joes Mataxis. See you next time, and as always... After 3, 1, 2, 3. Full Force.
I should have given it a Yo Joe this week, I think.
Do it anyway.
Yo Joe.
That sounded like the Yo Joe you hear on the arcade game. It's like a more aggressive, 8-bitier, more like... Yeah, I'm into that. That was good. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter at The Full Force, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.